An age ago, the beating heart of our people was a king who knew only victory. He wanted nothing more than an honorable death on the battlefield. Yet, none could match him, and so he wandered the earth, becoming lost in time and tide. Then we too lost our honest purpose, while silk-clad men sat upon the throne. But tremble now, all cities that lay under the stars, for out of the shadows and mists of the land of promise, our courage has been rekindled, our heart has returned, and the world will burn.
Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to Comic Book Team Up with RJ and myself. How's it going? I'm like all confused because I'm at my normal time. I'm back to my normal schedule. You know, I work construction, so it's 7 in the morning to 3. So I'm back. I will be pursuing guests on my channel again. It's been almost like a year. The Babylonian captivity of John's Longbox. How you doing, RJ?
Great. Well, I have to say, we now return you to your regular scheduled program.
My hair is disagreeing with me. My hair likes midnight, I guess. It's crazy. I was asleep. I took a nap on the couch, and I woke up like, oh.
You know what I just realized, John, as you're playing the trailers? Crown the Destroyer reopens on Fund My Comic a week from today on the 1st of the month. So we should do an opening day stream, and we'll do an opening day stream next weekend or next Wednesday. Sorry.
What
do you think?
That sounds good. And it's funny because in your trailer it says only on Indiegogo.
I'll have to change that. I can edit now. You can edit the stuff in YouTube, right? So.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't know how to do all that. I guess now is a good time to. Renzo is in the middle of drawing Patriarch #1. Matter of fact, I just got another finished colored page today by Oscar just now, and I asked him. I said, I wanted the King Fu Christmas special. It's only 16 pages. So, and I want to have it done by Christmas. I was like, Renzo, would you mind just switching and doing it? He goes, I can't wait to do King Fu. So he's like, let me read the script. And like a couple of hours later, he's like, that's a great story. He goes, and within 3 hours, he thumbnailed about 6 pages for approval. And he's like, I'm going to burn through this. So as soon as possible, we're going to launch King Fu. I want to do like a short campaign, streamlined. The only thing available will be King Fu Christmas special. That's a 16-page story. And I can't, in my mind, justify a 16-page comic book, because the cheapest it's got to be is $10. You know what I mean? So I was like, I can't do this to my supporters. So I had another Christmas special for next year, and I shortened it to 6 pages. So together that's 22 pages. And I have another artist, and I asked her, I said, do you think you could get this done in 2 months, 6 pages and a cover? She goes, it'll be done in a couple of weeks. So that's 6 pages. So as soon as she has the cover and a page, and as soon as Renzo has 4 pages and a cover, we're launching this campaign. We'll get it done. And it's going to be streamlined. Just the comic with a really cool add-on. You guys are going to love this add-on. So that's the channel news. I figured I'd share with everybody.
Here's my new page. If you want to put that up, I got a new page from Enrique.
Oh, wow.
Part of Fade to Blue. So he is a beautiful artist, I got to say. You give him especially architectural stuff, he just runs with it.
Look at that. That is beautiful. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this comic?
Well, Fade to Blue is basically, our main character here is Jonathan. And he acquires supernatural, superhuman / abilities that he does not want at all. It completely ruins his life, and he basically becomes a nomad wandering across America, trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that he has these powers right now. And this is in 1929, 1930, which is when we start the story. So he gets himself into a lot of trouble, especially in the kind of the fact that his powers allow him to see things that other people can't see. And so it's sort of a supernatural book, kind of in the vein of what's that show? I keep on forgetting the name of that show. The one with the vampire. Anyways, it's a cross between a film noir and an Indiana Jones kind of thing. Okay. But the thing is that, again, I fully go into in this book what I'm always talking about with the Celtic otherworld. So he starts to see doors and entranceways to other places. And this is what you got right now on the top of page, I can't remember, this page 19 here for book 3. He's falling through a portal into someplace else.
It's funny, RJ, we have similar stories because in my world, there's constant veils to other worlds, but but you can't interact with them unless you could observe them. So observation is the key. So some people through drugs, some people through training, and some people through accidents of meteorological conditions can see these veils, and that's one of the public eye's abilities, is he could pretty much see everything. So he could interact with these veils. So I wonder if any of these veils lead to these worlds. That's, it's kind of cool. I love that we're thinking in similar circles. So we got Arkham over here, who one of my artists. We got Tony Grigo saying hello. How you doing? Hey, I know this guy. Fourth move. RJ, because most of the what just happened? What is going on? Because most of the core Marvel superheroes are motivated by guilt instead of altruism. Does that make them any less heroic? How's that?
Not at all. I would say guilt is the thing that pushes you to become more heroic. That's the whole point. If you listen to my videos on Saturday, the difference between shame and guilt, or shame culture and a guilt culture. Guilt culture is you pointing the finger at yourself saying, I screwed up. I need to become better. So that is one of the major things that you need to be heroic, is to look at your actions. That's the first heroic virtue, which is prudence, is the actions directed by right reason according to reality. And so if you realize that you made a wrong decision and it worked out badly for you, you got to recalculate the way you look at reality and the way you make decisions. And guilt is a great motivator to do so.
Right. I remember one of your videos about shaming and guilt, and it opened my eyes. I never really thought about it. Yeah. I'm going to jump ahead. First we'll just say yes, an early live stream. Yes, this is the normal time. We were just streaming at midnight because I was on a late schedule.
John was on a bender.
I was on a year bender. No, my work schedule. I was going to work at 3 to 11, and I would come home as fast as I could, take a shower, just so I could stream at midnight. But that job is over. That's the thing about construction. Jobs end. That job ended. I'm on a new job, and things are normal now, and I can park right on the job. It's great. Matt Bauer, I want to say, how you doing, Matt? I was on his channel on Monday night. We had a blast. We just talked about early punk rock days. RJ, you remember your early punk rock days, right? You were RJ stage
No,
diver.
sorry. I wasn't a punk rock fella. I'm not even a music fella.
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun. So go to Matt Barr's channel and watch Friday's freaking awesome show. It just put me in such a good mood. George Morales, how you doing, George? And Matt says shaming works in real life. I'm going to give a 30-second answer, and then I'm sure RJ will give a 45-minute comment. But I was with you on that one. Shaming does work. You know, peer pressure, shaming, it absolutely nobody is going to argue. But the thing about shaming, and if I got RJ's point correctly, is shame is motivated by the group, and the group changes at any, you know what I mean? So if you're in a mean girl group, you could shame other people into bullying the outcast. You know what I mean? So a shame society gets you to do things because of the fashions and the whims of the time. Now, and those don't actually always align with the truth. Did I get your point correctly, RJ?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So guilt is superior in the fact that if you know right from wrong, like the perfect example that this is an embarrassing thing to admit, but I'm going to admit it. When I was in 4th grade, my father gave me $5 to put in the church box, and I went to mass with my brother, and I put the money in my pocket. And when I came home, my father said, "Did you put that money in the box?" And he knew right away. It was a test. Yeah. But, little kids like, how did my father know I was lying? Meanwhile, there was sweat all over my face. You know what I mean? So he's like, "Oh, good." He goes, because Jesus was watching, and for a week, I didn't spend that money. The next week in church, I just took it out like crying and put it. You know what I mean? Because guilt. It was guilt. Nobody shamed me, except myself. So I'm not disagreeing with that. Shaming does work, and if you have a group of good people, shame. But
that's absolutely, because I'm always going on about the quote unquote progressive people, and they don't react to guilt because they don't internalize any kind of morality system. But if you want to get them to change, you're gonna have to shame them into doing so. It's the only way you're gonna get them to change.
Right. They both work. Yes. But if you're motivated by internal, then you can stand up to the crowd. Yeah, I know. As soon as I said it, I realized I pronounced your name wrong. But have my last name, man. Every day I get mail addressed to the wrong. My last name is Bua, B-U-A. And it's funny because I'll get mail, John Bug, John Bus, John Bun, and then at work, they wrote my name on the attendance list, John Baughher. I was like, so Matt, yeah, I'm with you. I as soon as I said it, I realized I mispronounced it.
Do people look at your name when it's actually spelled correctly and go, "Where are you from?"
Yeah,
like Hawaii or something?
And I love when I go John, and then I wait for them to pronounce it, and they go, It's fun. Yeah, Matt, it's funny because what my sister and I, we love when we, she'll get Catherine Bug, and I'll get John Bug. She calls me up. I got Bug in the mail today. I got Bug last week. It's 50 years old, and we still like, yeah, I got Bug. And it's funny because now my wife has the last name, and she's like, I got Bug. She's playing along. And it's Matt, I'm sure you could back me up on this. You probably do this too. If somebody calls and I pick up the phone, and if they can't pronounce my last name, I hang up, because then I know it's not anybody I want to talk to. You know what I mean? Like, my friends know how to pronounce my name. Yeah. So, welcome everybody. I just wanted to greet everybody. What do you want to talk about today, RJ?
I was just posting a lot of stuff on X, and I was talking about it to people anyways, the stuff that I'm posting. I got a lot of reactions about lesser known characters, and I love, not pointing out in a superior way, but pointing out to people that there are a lot of characters out there that you don't know about that are good characters, and we're just around for a little bit. So I thought maybe if we lag, we can talk about that. The one I posted, especially, I posted a bunch this week, but was the second Banshee. So Banshee's daughter, which would be Siren, it's Cassidy, I think, and she's from the very early 1990s X-Force. So everybody, because in the panel that I posted, she was talking to one of the members, a mutant, and basically they were saying this must be Jean Grey because she's a redhead, long red hair. And I was thinking, no, she kind of looks like Artemis from DC, but it's obviously a Marvel book. So it's like I had to point people in the correct direction. I don't always get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong and people point me in the right direction, which is great.
Yes, I remember she was, the X-Men exploded. They used to have like, if you count the new X-Men and the old X-Men all together, there was like only 10 characters. And now they got an army. So I wonder if she got lost in the mix. Like she was part of if I remember correctly, she was probably in Generation X, or am I misremembering?
Or she may have been. I don't remember exactly. Generation X was never my favorite. I only bought it for the first 12 issues.
Yeah. Darkhawk, Matt's bringing up Darkhawk. That was one. He looked like
Flying Wolverine.
He was like Wolverine and Black Bolt combined. I remember he got this like star. There was like a Dark Hawk army in space, and he got this gem and it embedded into his chest. And what I liked about it was it made him aggressive. So he was always fighting like aggression to solve things with violence. There's a lot you could do with the lore and the background. I remember buying all of those comics in one eBay lot. It was the entire Darkhawk run, because that came out in the 90s when I was like in college, and at the brokest I ever was. Yeah, but I remember Darkhawk. That's a good one. Like there was a lot of like Marvels, like what's the other one? Blood Wolf or something like that. Do you remember that character?
I don't remember Blood Wolf. I remember DC had one like Wild Dog.
Oh yes, it's funny because Wild Dog, if for every like 20 issues you got a T-shirt, and I was working at the comic book store when that came out, so I was like, I'm taking the T-shirt, Larry. So I took the T-shirt, and it was like a cartoon dog with the mask and an Uzi. And I wore that shirt all the time. My friends were like, I don't even like comic books, but I love that T-shirt, But that was Max Allen Collins and Terry Beatty who do Miss Tree, and they made like a vigilante for DC, and he was just a regular guy that used an Uzi and solved his problems with violence. And he had a real short run. I'm surprised DC even did it. What is this you're bringing up here?
That's Siren there. That's why I could see people would mistake her for Jean Grey, except she flies really fast and has basically Banshee-like abilities.
Right, and she had the wings underneath. Yeah, she had the Banshee power wings. Yeah, so I always wondered now if you have the mutant ability to sonic scream, and then you have a child, and your child has the power of sonic scream, is your child a mutant? Because doesn't mutant mean you're different from your parents? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
it's mutation from the Homo sapiens, but then again, yeah, you're right. If they're their own species, I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
Which is funny because if you go to, let's say, what is it, late 80s, early 1990s, when Jean Grey and Cyclops went into the future, to the apocalypse-controlled future, and they found Cable as a child and raised him. Everybody was basically a mutant in that society, and so the people who didn't have perfect mutations were actually outcasts in that society. So, because I can remember just like this guy, he was the head of basically the government, and they said he never would have actually become the head of the government 2 generations ago when mutants were pure, and he didn't have like a birthmark or something like that.
So would they say like they had like an X-Man named Beak, and he was just a normal human, but like he had feathers and a beak, but he couldn't fly or anything like that. So would he be an imperfect, like a non-useful mutation? Is that what they mean?
I don't remember the entire storyline because they didn't go too far into it, but the whole point was that your mutation had to be, had to have usefulness, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? I think Siren carrying on from her father, it's kind of like a double. Like, is
Right.
it useful because it's already something that people possess? You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 It's funny that you would talk about this because I guess it's on my mind. I just posted on Twitter, like you have that guy with all the swords facing him. And what comic book opinion has you like this? And I'm of the opinion that even in the Marvel universe, if you find out that your child is a mutant, it should be met with horror. Like most mutants should be like in real world detriment. Like most mutations are defects that die out. So like I think it should be like the X-Men comic should almost be a horror comic. Like, oh my god, he's a mutant, and like like a 12-year-old kid all of a sudden finds out he has flame powers and he freaks out and he explodes, and that's spontaneous human combustion. Or a baby's born and they find out like it breathes water and it suffocates before anybody could rescue it. It dies. It's like, oh my god, my kid was a mutant. Or a kid has claws, and as it's being born, it activates the claws and kills them up. Like, I know these are horrible things, but being a mutant should be terrifying. Or like Scott Summers as a kid blasts his way out of the womb. You know what I mean? And that's why the father abandons the kid. You know what I mean? And maybe horrible people adopt these mutants, after it kills half the maternity ward. Like, that's the way the X-Men should be, if you ask me. But then again,
there's a really interesting, I can't remember, I'll try to look it up, but there's a really interesting anime that basically goes off of that premise. That basically in the early mid 90s, people unlocked the ability to generate extra abilities, and it basically becomes a horror-like world because these people are going around slaughtering people, or because they get slighted by a girl and all of a sudden they find her dead, things like that. So the mutations are actually causing this horrible world. But then they skip forward to the future where basically all people have powers. They're the only ones allowed to exist anymore. And the whole point was they have this slave class of rat men, which they use to do all their manual labor. And what they did was they actually took the remaining human beings that couldn't develop powers and mutated them backwards into basically a slave class of rat people, so that they would actually serve them as a superior race. And the whole story arc was about these rat men basically using their intellect and what they had found in the ruins of the old world to take back over power and control, which only happens at the very, very end of the entire show. It's a really good show.
What show is this?
I can't remember. From the New World, I think it is. It's an anime.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's got some disturbing bits to it, though. Like you're saying, it should be a disturbing world. Yeah, this world is disturbing.
Oscar, who just submitted a page, he's my colorist for Patriarch and pretty much everything going forward. He wants to know what we're talking about. We're kind of talking about lesser known characters that we love, but then Tony's going to throw a curveball in here. RJ, what's your thought of the whole magical Negro trope in fiction? I found that Stephen King leaned heavily into it, especially in the early part of his career.
I'm really not familiar with it. From what I brushed up against it every once in a while, just from watching YouTube videos, it makes absolutely no sense. And again, I would dare to say, from what little I know, the fact that you got your Messiah complex white liberals trying to turn black people into something special, which they can control and which has no threat to their liberal mentality. Because if you look at all these Marvel books where you see these effeminate black men are always feminized within mainstream comics these days. Why? Because the liberals want to control them or get rid of them, one or the other.
Right. And they blindly look past any negative attributes. You know what I mean? I say it's more in America. It seems like the whole magical, but we forget, like, anytime there's an American Indian, he's a shaman. Anytime there's a Chinese person, they know secret magic healing techniques. You know what I mean? So it's any non-white character, and it's racism to the highest degree. You know what I mean? you're never going to find an old Irish guy who knows some fairy magic or something like that. You know, it's always the non-whites. They just know stuff, and they're so much better. And
That's
things-
funny. Because John, the book that I was just showing you, Fate to Blue, is an old Irish guy, and he's the one who teaches one of my characters, the character, what about the doors. How about Hannah Dundee?
Oh yeah, this is everybody in this character is a lesser known. Yeah, this is from Xenozoic Tales. You probably know it better as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs by Mark Schultz. It threw me off because it's in color. Because he the original, I think it was a Kitchen Sink press. I forget. Yeah, I think it was Kitchen Sink Comics. They were in black and white, and oh my god, it's some of the best art you'll ever see.
Definitely.
And it makes no sense. People emerge 500. They go underground because of a war. They come out 500 years later. It's not just dinosaurs. It's everything. So it's giant mammals. It's dinosaurs. It's the giant insects. It's everything that ever existed on Earth is now alive again. And they don't know why, and I think they were exploring it. When the thing about Mark Schultz is he's just such a great artist that it was getting years between issues, and I think they just canceled it due to it would take forever. You know, for all we know, he's still working on the next issue, and Kitchen Sink didn't even tell him it was canceled yet. You know, they're just waiting. They're just waiting. You want to talk about Sam Keith? Matt and I talked about Sam Keith on Monday. Are you a fan of Sam Keith? You know, he just died. How old was he? He wasn't even that old, right? What was he, 63 or something like that? Are you familiar with Sam Keith?
Not particularly off the top of my head. I need a visual to see.
Yeah. Well, he did the Max.
Oh yes.
Yeah, he could do like traditional superheroic stuff, but I think he's most famous for the Max. You know,
well, they turned that into a television show, so yeah,
right. They made it a cartoon show, and I'll say like you either love him or hate him kind of art. I think
the Max actually worked, but when he tried to do it for Wolverine and stuff like that, I was like, no, that's awful.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't particularly like his abstract superhero stuff, but you know, his own creations. Yeah, it was so good. What? Oh, okay. They of course they changed everything on me of how to share images. But here, this is his most. I want to say that this is a difficult comic to read. To this day, I was just talking with Matt about this Monday. I think it's like 12, 16 issues or so like that, around 20, I'll say. And no two people got the same thing out of this comic. It's really, really difficult to get everything, but it's one of those rare cases where it's worth the work. You know, it's a disturbed girl. I don't want to get into the nature of her disturbing, and then she meets the Max, who may or may not be a real person or a homeless person. You know, and they have dreams, and it may not be real enough. And geez, you could talk about this, and you're like, did I read the same comic as you? And then you go back, yeah, okay, you interpreted it different. But yeah, I love this, but I don't like when he does Superman, Batman, Wolverine. Yeah, I know it's mean to say that, but I don't want to lie either. But get the comics. They're really interesting. Like I found out about Sam Keith because he did the first 10 issues of Sandman with Mike Dreberg from Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And then he did Zero Girl and I think the Max, and then another Four Women, I think was the name of the comic, which I don't even want to talk about what it's about. It's really disturbing stuff, but it worked for him. Yeah. Multiple. Okay, yeah. These are lesser known characters: Multiple Man, Wolvesbane, Havoc, Polaris, Strong Guy.
It's the second version of X-Force or X-Factor. Second version of X-Factor, yes.
X-Factor. What do you think about Multiple Man? Always kind of fascinated me, that power to replicate yourself. I'm sure we all had that fantasy, like when the alarm goes off, you could replicate yourself and send that one to work.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I love that run of X Factor so much that I I know some people have picked up on this, obviously. Some of my characters are based off of that version of X Factor. I have a character, Farrell, basically based off of Wolfsbane, because I used to draw Wolfsbane all the time from Larry Stroman's version of her. I loved Larry Stroman's drawing, and I wanted to get that into my book, although it's got a completely different sort of backstory. She's more of a what do you call it, werewolf than what you have a mutant in Wolfsbane. And also the power set for Havoc, I love the visuals for it. It never made any sense to me with the concentric circles, but that's the basis of the visual for Pulse when he basically starts his powers up for my character Pulse.
Yeah, Havoc and Cyclops have the same exact power, but they differentiate it with the special effects. I just think it is cool. That costume with the three, whatever you want to call them, bands, it's like bad, but it's awesome at the same time. You know, it shouldn't work, but I guess it does work. I've always liked, for the longest time, Havoc and Polaris, for me, like I started collecting X-Men at 119, and then I quit X-Men around 200, you know, and then I bought full runs on eBay because I'm a crazy person. But they didn't show up a lot. So they always had what I call the Boba Fett effect. You know, you saw Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back for 30 seconds. He had a cool costume. You know, he captured Han Solo. And then for the next 2 years, you thought he was the coolest guy in the world until you saw him get punked out by a blind Han Solo in Return of the Jedi. But Havoc, I got to fill in the blanks. I was like, he's so cool. He's so mysterious, you know. And then when he started using them all the time, he was just a regular superhero.
Which, again, Polaris is one of the characters that I post usually once every, 3-4 months on X when I do my comic stuff, because I love, again, Larry Stroman's, well, Polaris has really good visuals. Most of her versions, multiple different versions are great. But Larry Stroman, again, is one I used to draw. Larry Stroman just loves drawing women's hair in very intricate and unique ways that's only Larry Stroman.
And one of the things I liked is they wanted to differentiate her from Jean Grey, so they gave her green hair. You know, she's a mutant, give her green hair. So that was just an editorial decision. Oh man, people are going to get mixed up. You know, I don't know why they didn't give her blonde hair or black hair, but green hair works. Yeah, X Factor, New Warriors, and Exiles. Exiles was I thought Exiles, this is going to sound contradictory, but I don't like all of these multiple Earths and you know, just grab another version of the character. But it worked in Exiles, but that was the whole purpose of the comic, is these people were lost going through different multiverse iterations, and they had the good Hyperion, the bad Hyperion, and this guy and that guy. You know, the straight version of this character meets the gay version of this character, blah, blah, blah. It worked because that was the premise of the comic. It's like I don't like multiverses that don't watch Quantum Leap. You know what I mean? But that it worked within that context. And that was a fun comic, both versions.
It's funny. Quantum Leap is something I watch, but I would say Sliders is the show that inspired a whole lot of what I do with portals and stuff like that.
I forgot about the show Sliders. Okay, that's probably what I was, instead of Quantum Leap. That's Quantum. I forget which one of them did time travel.
Was Quantum Leap?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Oscar says, what was the name of the Marvel copy of Spawn? I'm picturing him in my head, but I can't think for the life of me think of his name. If anybody in the chat knows who he's talking about, I remember the cover. He was like this. It was all orange and red. Adam Kubert is a good artist. You better, yeah. Okay, here's a philosophical question. Would you consider the humans to be mutants?
No, because it's not a mutation. It's a genetic engineering experiment. So that's a different level of change for human beings. Basically, mutation is a freak accident according to environmental issues that affect them, instead of a scientifically engineered copy of something different.
Right. Mutants are just happenstance, you know. And they were called Children of the Atom because Stan Lee said, I don't know if he ever said it in any actual comic, but once atomic weapons were released, it released something in the atmosphere that caused humanity to have random mutations once in a while. I think they kind of phased that out because now Wolverine is before nuclear weapons, and an apocalypse and everything like that. But that's why they were originally called Children of the Atom. But the Inhumans, I love the Inhumans. They were created by space aliens. The Kree experimented on humanity and was creating a slave race of warriors, and then whatever, either lost track of them, or it takes so much time to travel, or the Skrulls beat them back and they couldn't get back to Earth or whatever, and they just, for the past 10,000 years, they just lived among themselves. Do you remember that the Inhumans had a slave, the Alpha Primitives?
That was like late 70s. They did that.
Right. They had the Alpha Primitives, and then they kind of forgot about that. The Humans, they were non-democratic, they were royalty, and had slaves. We kind of forget about that. I wonder why. Yeah, Adam Kubert was a good. I'm going to be controversial and say he was better than Jim Lee. I like Jim Lee, but I don't know. Jim Lee is. I don't know. I just like other people better is the only way to say it.
Kubert is an illustrator that became a sequential artist. I think that gives him much more range than Jim Lee did.
Yeah, Jim Lee. I don't know. I'm trying to think of I don't want to say anything mean because I do like Jim Lee's art. Don't get me wrong, but I think Kubert is light years ahead of him. I think Jim Lee is, and this sounds meaner, and I'm just blanking on the good words, but Jim Lee is more style over substance.
Let me put it this way, John. Here's I think you expressed it this way before, and I'll put the two of our thoughts together. Jim Lee is a good artist, but he learned how to be an artist. What I can tell from his art. This is just me spitballing. I think that Jim Lee learned how to become an artist off of looking at two-dimensional images of other people's art on the page. Whereas Kubert, people like that, when they're illustrators before they become sequential artists, they learn to draw the entire figure, they learn to draw three-dimensional, they learn to draw things that you normally wouldn't even see and covered over by the picture, or the main part of the picture when they do their final part. That's the difference between an illustrator and someone who just learns sequential art from sequential art.
I think you just explained it exactly what I meant. Yeah. We got Georgina Floyd in the chat, whose beauty takes your breath away. That's the only thing I can say about Georgina Floyd. Breathtakingly beautiful. I miss Nomad. Oh, there's Jack Monroe version. Him and U.S. Agent John F. Walker were the conservative Republican right-wing super. Yeah, and of course they were jerks because they're conservatives. Because RJ, what do you think about this? Conservatives could write endearing liberal characters, but progressives cannot write endearing conservative characters.
Oh, absolutely. They have trouble writing endearing liberal characters. I mean, I just remember, Green Arrow during the Green Lantern, Green Arrow arcs when they were together, and he's an idiot. I mean, I'd like to smack him half the time.
Right. Yeah. I could go on and on and on about that hard traveling heroes that Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Green Lantern. They just made Green. You're supposed to sympathize with Green Arrow, and you're just like, knock it off. Bleeding heart liberal is the only way to describe it. This was an anime. Oh yeah. Geez, we're so far behind in the chat. They're talking about what you were talking about. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Yes, the original comic was called Xenozoic Tales by Kitchen Sink Comics, by Kitchen Sink Press. It was a black and white Mark Schultz. They brought it over to Marvel Epic line, and they changed it to Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, and then they made a child's cartoon for it that it's hard to find. Netflix has it, but it's in Spanish. So Oscar, come on over and you can translate it for me. Max and Wolverine. Yeah. The Max was the greatest thing to ever come out of early. I will say, yeah, I agree. Why? Because it was its own thing. It wasn't copying anybody else's trend. All the early Image stuff, I went on record a million times saying I wasn't a big fan of it. Sam Keith made a story that was difficult to tell in its content and in its storytelling on purpose, but that didn't chase people away. Like, I remember my nephew got into to the Max, and he was like 16 and I was in my 30s, and we would talk about the comic, and we realized we both interpreted it completely different ways, and it was fun. We went back and read, looking at each other's opinions. That was good. He also did short stories of Marvel Comics. It's been Sam Keith. Yes, he did. Yes, I believe Max had one TV series on MTV. Yep, he did. He did. Keith did the origin of the Penguin along with Alan Grant for an issue of Secret, probably one of my favorite Penguin stories. Oh, okay. I'm sure I have it. I just don't remember. What are your thoughts on what the Marvel Cinematic Universe would have been if Marvel had all the rights from the beginning? Interesting. Oh, do you want to say anything about that?
You wouldn't have got half the movies that you did get, and it would be completely different. They would have ran with X-Men from the very beginning, because
so?
That's where everything came from.
You don't think they would have started with Fantastic Four, or they would have started with X-Men?
Oh yeah, because the whole X-Men, people forget the fact that first X-Men movie was the first time, really, besides DC characters, you got a Marvel character on screen that people really liked and looked good, and it made money, and they would have just gone hand over fist with that, I think.
Yeah, it definitely would have been different. I would have loved to have seen Fantastic Four handled like, because the first 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic, they pretty much stuck to the material, and they changed what needed to be changed. Like Iron Man wasn't tied to the Vietnam War anymore. It would have just aged up the character. So it would have been good to see the Fantastic Four back then. I'm still like a battered ex-wife. Maybe the next Fantastic Four movie, maybe we'll get better. Polaris is more proof that Jean made Iceman gay. When Polaris bumped Bobby for Havoc, Bobby subconsciously tried to kill Havoc. If Bobby, yeah, we all know that's one of my, when they hire me to write Marvel, that the telepaths, whether they mean it or not, they can't help it. They're influencing people around them. And I think the biggest victim of this is Cyclops. Everybody in Cyclops' life is a telepath. You're going to tell me that didn't damage him? Havoc isn't a mood swingy person, because he spent most of his life away from telepaths, but Cyclops, his mentor was Xavier. His first love was Jean Grey. Then he marries Emma Frost. There's a pattern here. I hope I'm having a blessed day. Had a good day at work. Came home, had some White Castle, talking to RJ. The Inhumans are the results of Kree crossbreeding with Eternal. Is that the new continuity? I don't know that. If that's true, I kind of don't like that, but what am I going to do? Mutants are biological after effects. 100%. Oh, geez, we are so far behind. I'm sorry, guys. First off, I love the engagement. Don't stop. Yeah, Andy Kubert replaced Jim Lee on X-Men, while Adam Kubert replaced Mark Silvestri on Wolverine. Yeah, I get the Kubert brothers mixed up sometimes. Inhumans are oppressed, therefore anything to do is by definition justified. Are they oppressed anymore? I mean, the Kree haven't been here in 10,000 years, and then the Inhumans are oppressing the Alpha Primitives. I think the short-lived Inhuman TV show wasn't bad. I still didn't see it. Yes. And McFarlane copied Venom with The Haunt. Yes, The Haunt I actually liked. The Haunt had some good. That was a 25-issue series. I recommend that. Does anybody know that the name of the Spawn ripoff that Marvel made? It's driving me nuts because I can picture him clearly. Hey, Ben is here. How you doing, Ben? Tony Guigo says Tenny O'Neill completely destroyed the question. That is funny because Denny O'Neill is a liberal, and I've said this before, and so far people haven't pounced on me yet, so I'll repeat it. Denny O'Neill is a much better editor than he is a writer. He fundamentally messes up every character that he writes, and I say that with absolute adoration and love for Denny O'Neill. He was a great editor. He took his job seriously, but the question was a conservative character. Steve Ditko made him a blatantly conservative character, and Denny O'Neill didn't know how to make so he literally had the guy get shot in the head and survived, and it caused a mystical rebirth, and he changed his personality into an ineffective liberal. And my proof that he was ineffective was in the last issue of the Dennis Conway, Denny O'Neill question stories. he just gives up. He leaves Hub City. Hub City is literally on fire. Him and the hot mayor get in the car, and he's like, enough's enough, and they leave. And that's a perfect example of liberalism. We damaged the city so much. We're going to go live someplace else and continue voting the way that ruined this city. Perfect. Denny O'Neil, you encapsulated liberalism, whether you meant to or not. Founders, yes, Spawn is up there too. Kevin is here. How you doing? How you doing, Yellow Flash? Good to see you. You want to come in? You want to come in and talk with us? RJ, do you know Yellow Flash?
I know who Yellow Flash is. I don't think I've ever talked to him though.
Oh, yeah. If you want to come in, I'll send you the link. Matt, if you want to come in too, Matt, come on in, Matt. Everybody come in. I'm sorry, I should have asked you first, RJ, but it's good to see Yellow Flash here. And Yellow Flash, his comic is still on Ripper Send, Mighty Golden Patriot. Ironically, older liberals could write unintentionally beloved conservative characters like Dwight Schrute, Ron Swanson. Well, Ron Swanson was supposed to be a jerk, and he stole the show, and everybody loved him. Just like Archie Bunker was supposed to be a jerk, and everybody ended up loving Archie Bunker. He stole the show. What do we got here?
Swan.
Oh.
This is one of the pictures I posted on X, one of the covers, and people just freaked out over. It's like I got 16,000 engagement on the thing because people don't know who Swan is, and it's a really good Wonder Woman character. Although she does have earlier origins than Wonder Woman.
This is my favorite era of I almost said Batman. What is wrong with my brain? This is my favorite era of Wonder Woman. Just George Perez walked that fine line. He put the Greek mythology firmly in the DC universe, and it worked. I also go on record as saying the Eternals never should have been folded into Marvel. It doesn't work when you have Zuras and Zeus and Icarus and Icarus. You know what I mean? They should have been like their own thing. Neo says a lot of YouTubers gave their thoughts on what the MCU would have been like if Marvel had all the rights. Yeah, I agree that the X-Men, they probably would have let it off, and then the X-Men movies would have been so popular. I would like to think back then when they treated the characters and the property with care and respect. Obviously the first 10 years was everybody loved it. That they would have done the Fantastic Four, they would have done with justice. So maybe RJ is right. They would have started with the X-Men, because it was the most. But I don't know. Was the X-Men popular because of the movie, or was the X-Men popular and then they made the movie? You know what I mean? Like I forget now. It's been so long. So if Marvel had the rights, would they have started? I don't know. I forget, guys. Refresh me. If the X-Men were popular because of the movie, then I could see maybe they would have started with the Fantastic Four. But if they were popular, and that's what caused there to be a movie, then RJ was right. But I'm old, guys. Leave me alone.
I just threw up one of the other Wonder Woman George Perez covers just because you're talking about Greek mythology. This is beautiful George Perez fold out cover.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. Is that okay, RJ?
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah, look at that. Is that gorgeous or what?
I say George Perez was for Greek mythology for DC as Jack Kirby was for his new gods.
Yeah. It's funny, and I also say this, that I think Wonder Woman works best in the context of World War II. So like if I was to do this, I would have had her come to in World War II, and then after the war, she would have been like, my mission is complete, and then go back and fade into like a legend, and then come back in the modern times, because either Themyscira is beyond time and space, or she's an immortal clay golem. So she, you know what I mean? But that's what I think.
When I was posting this, people started to talk about the cover and the older versions of Wonder Woman, and I had completely forgot because of the nature of Wonder Woman today and how it is basically a warrior. But Wonder Woman was supposed to be an emissary of peace.
Right.
Like that was her job. And I was like, oh my, I completely, that version of the character has now been so completely eclipsed by basically what she is, I don't know, a follower of Ares, basically.
Oh, okay. Finally, somebody sent me this. I got it loaded up. Oh, you didn't have to. We could still talk about Wonder Woman. It's just that somebody said the fake ass wannabe Todd McFarlane spawn from Marvel Comics was Night Watch. So I went and got this. I couldn't remember. I have like an encyclopedic knowledge of comics. And I couldn't remember this, and that tells you everything you need to know. The 90s. I know all you youngins are nostalgic for the 90s, but RJ and I are nostalgic for the 80s when it comes to comics.
I don't even remember this comic, quite honestly. I don't think I ever even bought it.
Yeah. That is a good Wonder Woman comic. Yeah, that's it. George Perez just he stuffed every square inch of detail into his comics. Just so good. Just so good. Oscar, this is what you're talking about, right? I think the X-Men have been popular since the cartoon. Yeah, maybe you're right. And Wolverine is nausea, and Cyclops is done by the guy who does the voice of Prowler Duke. You're right. X-Men 96. Yeah, so X-Men was popular. So RJ's probably right. They would have started with X-Men. I just think the plot of the first X-Men movie is so bad. And what infuriates me is it could have been so good. It could have been important. You know, the X-Men movie is okay. There's mutants, so Magneto is going to get people to like mutants by turning you into fish people. You know, it's just so bad. Like I think if I had a time machine, go back in time, and it would have started out with Rogue making out with her boyfriend, and then all of a sudden the boyfriend gets his soul sucked out of him. He's all emaciated and everything like that. And she's screaming and freaking out. The cops come, they go to arrest her. The cops all start collapsing, and they're like, what do they do? You know, and the cops kind of overreact. Maybe they shoot her or whatever. And she wakes up, and then, you know, like, what's going on? And you see mutant, you know, kills cop, kills boyfriend, whatever. It hurts her. And she's on trial, and there's people in the streets, kill mutants or whatever. Yeah. And then you have Magneto. They come, they break her out of jail and be like, mutants will never get their fair day, you know, blah, blah, blah. We are here now. And they rescue Rogue, you know, and Mystique is like, I'm going to raise you now. You're my daughter. And now the X-Men fight the bad mutants to get her arrested so that they can have a trial, so that they can establish that there's, you know, mutants are humans and deserve due process and everything else that humans get. That, I think, would have been an important movie, but no, you know, we're gonna capture Rogue and then make people through magnetics into fish people. It was just such a stupid movie.
It does have one of the best lines, I think, if not the best line of all Marvel movies, and it's not very heroic, but it's when Wolverine kicks her out of the trailer and tells her to leave, and she says, "What am I supposed to do?" And he says, "I don't know." And she goes, "You don't know? You don't care. Pick one." I burst out laughing in the theater. I was like, oh, that is Wolverine right there.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, right. I agree. I forgot about that line. Massive Panda. Is there any truth to the notion that Alan Moore accidentally wrote Rorschach as a conservative character? I didn't realize why he became such a fan favorite. I heard that. Not sure if it's true. Well, he didn't accidentally. The Rorschach is based on The Question and also based on the Mr. A, who are conservative characters. Most Steve Ditko characters are conservative. Like, we got Hawk, and then he balanced it out with Dove. And here's a perfect example of a conservative. Well, I guess Dove was kind of wimpy, and I take that back. But Mr. A, The Question, my favorite Ditko character, Killjoy. Oh my God! Not only was he conservative, but he would laugh at the liberals to their face. You made poor decisions, he would say. That's why you're poor. I love that character. Peter Parker was conservative, you know, and if you read those first issues, he was pissed off at the students protesting. He was calling them poachers, which is an Ayn Rand term for people who don't produce. But anyway, Alan Moore, so he made Rorschach the conservative guy, and he kind of was like making him like, as we would call it, far right Nazis, because, you know, he was in what was the name of the magazine, the New Frontier or whatever. But Alan Moore, contrary to what RJ is going to say, Alan Moore is a good writer. and he put depth into the character. And I think he pretends to be outraged that people like Rorschach, but Rorschach is the only character who has heroic ideals and sticks to them. He will not compromise. And I think that resonates well with people. He's my favorite character in The Watchmen. RJ, I know you don't like The Watchmen, but do you like Rorschach?
Again, he would probably be the most grounded character, I'll give you that, in the entire thing, and the most likable of unlikable characters.
Right. Yeah. Everybody in The Watchmen is unlikable for different reasons. But Rorschach, I know right now, like giving a sympathetic backstory justifies violence and horrible, degenerate behavior. But Rorschach had a very sad, miserable life, but he didn't become a degenerate, and he stuck to the ideas of truth and objectivity, and to the point he died for him. He told Miss Dr. Manhattan, who was this demiurge power being, kill me, because like in Yellow Jackets, if you want me to stop, you're gonna have to kill me, or whatever show that was, Ozark, and he's standing there crying. He's like, I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna tell the truth. I'm going to do the right thing. And Dr. Manhattan killed him. How could you not admire that guy? I actually got a little emotional just talking about it. That's how good that character was written. So if Alan Moore is shocked that people like this character, I think Alan Moore likes to be contrary.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If he says here's a guy who says he's a communist. Meanwhile, he's a millionaire. But I don't know. I have this fantasy that you go to Alan Moore's house and he's just sitting there doing the crossword puzzle and watching Jeopardy, and just a totally normal homebody. And then you call him up to do a comic interview, and he puts on all these pretend magic rings and acts all crazy. And then okay, back to like just petting the cat. Like he's probably real boring in real life. True. Even the DCA expanded when they wanted to distinguish between Hawkgirl and Wonder Woman's personality, Hawkgirl was the and if you watch the animated series, everybody loves Hawkgirl. Everybody, like, that's their favorite character, Hawkgirl. Yeah, I can't remember what the story about. Yeah, it shows you how I have those comics and I couldn't remember. Yes, Rogue started off as a villain. Yep, she did in Marvel Avengers.
Middle-aged villain who suspiciously got younger and younger as they portrayed her.
Rogue is overpowered. Rogue is absolutely overpowered. In that comic, she touched Captain America, Thor, and I forget who else, and they were unconscious. So she defeats people with a touch. There has to be a limitation on Rogue. Nightwatch was a science fiction version of Spawn. He got high-tech nanotech battlesuit from the future that could change into any advanced machines and weapons similar to the transmode virus. Yeah. Thank you for refreshing me. It just shows you I have all those comics and I don't remember. Joe Kubert did a great job in Sergeant Rock. Live adaptation was set to star Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it fell apart. Joe Kubert, for as far as I know, loved war comics. And I tell all my artists, are you having fun drawing this comic? Because if you're not having fun, not that I want to, but like I wish you were having fun, because it makes it a fun hobby instead of a chore. And I think if you're having fun, it comes through on the paper, and it showed. Whenever Joe Kubert was doing war comics or Western comics or dinosaurs, it was so much better. Same with John Buscema. When John Buscema was doing dinosaurs or Savage Sword of Conan, you could just see there was some vivacity there that wasn't in the superhero stuff.
I think I might have told you this story before, John. I remember I was in like probably grade 6 or something like that, and we're supposed to do posters for Veterans Day, right? Okay. And I, being me, I'm a very good mimic, so I basically took a small panel off of Joe Kubert, Sergeant Rock book. It might have been GI Combat. No, I think it was Sergeant Rock. Anyways, and I used that as the basis of my poster. And I was like, I won all these awards. I was like, would you stop? I was like, I didn't tell anybody I copied it off a comic book. I was like, no, I don't want the money. He's like, stop. I just withdraw everything.
Oh, no. it's like yeah. I was just reading a guy on Twitter said that he would just draw and draw and draw and draw all the time. Like any, in grammar school when you were done with your work, you'd have like free time. That's when I would read comics and other kids would draw. And this guy was saying that he would just draw, and he was getting popular with it. So another kid just started tracing, but he always drew at home, and he would come to work come to school the next day with traced pictures, and everybody's like, he's better than you. And he was like, every time I was like, yeah, but he's not drawing, he's tracing. And it made him look bad. It made him look like a sore loser. So he just stopped. You know what I mean? And he goes, and I continue to draw. And now I've been a professional artist for 20 years, and he lost interest, But yeah, that's what AI is, if you ask me. Is people just cheating to get recognition. I agree. Losing Objective Spider-Man, what a tragedy. RJ, how much of Ditko's objectivism do you see in his issues of Spider-Man?
It's been, I don't know, I really couldn't tell you how much of Ditko Spider-Man I've actually read, or how long ago, it's been that I've read those books. So I couldn't tell you the answer to that right off the top of my head.
I'm surprised that Rogue's first appearance in Avengers Annual 10 by Michael Golden got approved to the Comics Code Authority, where the artist shows that Spider-Woman does not wear a bra in that issue. I don't remember what you're talking about, but I got to say, like, do any superhero girls wear a bra? I mean, they wear skin-tight outfits and you never see any lines. But I got to look. I don't know what you're talking about. And I just did a video on that maybe like less than a year ago. Rorschach, peace that's built on a lie is useless. Yep. John, Old Dirty Fatty, how you doing? Good to see you. John, I think you figured Alan Moore out. Like Alan Moore and Grant Morrison out have been having like a wizard feud for 20 years. That just amuses me. Like, one's doing crazy sex magic, one's doing like old fashioned whatever magic, Talmudic, not Quran, Iron Zohar magic, Kabbalistic magic, back and forth at each other. And I like to think Alan Moore is just pretending about this, but I think Grant Morrison, when nobody's there, I think Grant Morrison is like staring at mirrors trying to make his reflection disappear, like Aleister Crowley's. Like, I think that guy's legitimately nuts. Whereas Alan Moore, I think it's all an act. He just likes people to think he's crazy. I wonder if Alan Moore succeeded in getting his share of the rights to Watchmen. Yeah, it's not that. No, DC still owns the rights. DC, he signed a deal that I forget how many years later, but X amount of years goes by and DC doesn't publish the Watchmen. He gets the rights back. So that's why DC constantly puts out another printing of the Watchmen. But Alan Moore still gets paid. And he claimed, I don't know if it's true. I wouldn't put it past Alan Moore to lie, but he said he gave his royalties to Black Lives Matter. And if that's true, then all I got to say is, ha, Alan Moore, you got scammed. You got scammed. I have ideas for Imagine MCU. Its phases went through almost the same movie lineup we actually got. I daydream about that. I just daydreamed about a new X-Men movie. Well, the artist on some panels shows the lines like how big, in the costume, and it must be cold. Okay, yeah. Well, that's my read just about anything by Michael Golden, and John Byrne in the X-Men. He put some details on Storm every once in a while that caused the 13-year-old boy to look at the comic book in a different way. I'm trying to, every time RJ's around, I try to talk properly. Yeah.
There you go, looking at a comic book in a different way. How's about Dream Girl?
Yeah, Dream Girl. This is why can't I think of his signature's right there. Steve Leahy, is that his name?
I remember correctly.
No, that's not Keith Giffen, but that's
it's not Keith Giffen. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head.
Leahy, I think his name is. He followed up Keith Giffen, and as much as you love Keith Giffen, to me Steve Leahy is the definitive Legion of Superheroes. These guys got destroyed by the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they never came back. They never came back.
Oh, the new version of them is so awful. It's just woke 101 from the get-go, and I shook my head. They started off so good by bringing Thorne forward through all the ages of DC to Commandi and all that kind of stuff until she gets to the Legion. And then I looked at the Legion books and I went, I'm not buying that. It is so awful. And I always loved the Legionnaires. I went by, like I told you every once in a while, I went back and bought as many of the Superboy and Legionnaire books that I could off of this guy that went bust in his comic shop, and he still had them laying around.
Yeah, there's, I don't know what it is, but there's a couple of like flea market type stores. Like you go inside and it's like, like people selling stuff. Over here, old video games. This guy's got furniture. This guy's got swords. And this guy's got comic books. This guy's got records. So there's a whole bunch of them. Retro collectibles is one, time warp or whatever is another one, and they all have like comics for $1. And I got the first. I forget what it is. Jimmy Olsen 87 or something like that, or 187. I forget what it is, but it's the first appearance of Darkseid for $1 in like near mint condition, because these guys don't know comics. They just buy long boxes of comics from people. Everything in this box $1. They don't know Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. Everything's in the air. They don't realize that they just sold the first appearance of Darkseid to me for $1. But anytime I see those old Kirby DC stuff or Legion of Superheroes with Superboy, I buy them. I hated them as a kid, but I love that. I love that innocence of them now. What is this? If superheroes wore synthetic stretch fabric costumes for the hours they would be freezing in New York winters and sweating like pigs in New York summers. That would suffer most. Yeah, Spider-Man talked about that in believe it or not, it was Chris Claremont drew it. It was Marvel Team Up. I forget the exact number, but it was Marvel Team Up. Spider-Man meets the Black Widow, and Black Widow was undercover as Nancy Rushman, and she couldn't come out of the cover, so she was this like vulnerable girl. And she was about to get mugged. Spider-Man saves her, and it's a snowstorm, and he has her change into her Black Widow costume because she's freezing. And as thin as it is, he's like, yeah, this unstable molecule costume, it responds to the weather. So like it keeps you cool in the summer and it keeps you warm in the winter. It stretches, it turns on fire, you know what I mean? It turns invisible with the Invisible Woman. So why not believe that it adjusts itself to the environment? Why not? I talk about this in Patriarch #1 when they give him his first costume.
Carl Story. That's who did that cover.
What's his name?
Carl Story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a great cover. RJ, I found out as time goes by, all major awards such as the Oscars and the Eisners are worthless. What is your thoughts on the awards, the award shows?
Oh, absolutely. You go back to some of my earliest videos. I talked about how for these quote unquote progressive people and Disney and things like that, they no longer use money, cash money, as their modem of exchange. It's awards. It's only awards. That's all it is. And that's why they corrupted the awards to mean something that they absolutely do not mean. And like the whole, what was his name? What's the guy? I can't remember off the top of my head. He was ripping into the Oscars. The guy from Jaws, not the main, Richard Dreyfuss. Yeah, he was like, yeah. No, this is ridiculous. Yeah. It's like, yeah, having quotas on who can get an Oscar depending on what kind of diversity stats they have.
Well, that's what he said. You're putting a quota on art, and that's not the way to make art. You know, he's as much as I can't stand Richard Dreyfuss. He's absolutely right.
Yep.
I always fantasize like, okay, oh wow, you know, whatever. I'm trying to think of. Mags Visaggio, you just won an Eisner Award. Oh, yeah, congratulations. You know, you must have worked hard for this. You must be so proud. What's your favorite Will Eisner story? And then wait for the Mags Visaggio to go, well, you won an award named after this guy, and you're honored, so you clearly know about Will Eisner. So tell me about Will Eisner. You won a Harvey Award. Tell me about Harvey. Who is Harvey? What's Harvey's last name? You know, you guys don't know anything about comics. Byrne, with the exception of She-Hulk, didn't get that risque until he went independent. As for storm, debris, and wind effects were always in the way. Yeah, but it was that's the difference, though. It was sexy and suggestive, and not lewd. if does that make sense? Like I have I'm trying to get it to Twitter to get a piece of art, but I'm working with a new artist, and she's like, I told her there's a witch in the comic, and she drew the witch, and I said that doesn't work because she's a seductress. You know, she's using sex as a weapon. So I think she is a little gun shy about drawing like a sexy girl. So the third attempt, I was like, this works. I said it's sexy without being lewd, you know. So it's not quite as sexy as I wanted it, but I kind of like her childlike, whimsical art style. And overall, it's supposed to be a story about a little girl, so I didn't want it to be too sexy. But what do you think about this? So it's sexy, but it's not lewd. So this is she's a witch set in the the late cowboy times. So she's the Western witch, and she starts flirting with me, and I kind of like the fact that she's got big hips and a big butt. It actually is part of the story. You'll see why when the story's finally here. But what do you guys think? Like, this is sexy without being lewd, and I think John Byrne straddled that line. He made Storm, Jean Grey, Havoc, Polaris, all not Havoc, but you know what I mean, all the women of the X-Men, very, very sexy, but he never really crossed that line. So
I think a lot of it has to do with how he did camera angles and positioning for the characters. That there's a line you cross right there if you're going, because Jim Lee, again, with the reboot of, let's say, Fantastic Four for Heroes Reborn, when he did the art for Sue Storm, he made Sue Storm beautiful, extra beautiful, but then he put her in positions where your mind goes in directions where you're not reading a comic book anymore.
Yeah, I'm not a prude. Like I bought Omaha the Cat Dancer and stuff like that, but that was a dirty comic with the story, believe it or not. It actually had a pretty good story, but like, it was a time and a place for it. Like, I don't want porn in mainstream comic books, but like nudity and Love and Rockets, although Love and Rockets is getting beyond my threshold lately, but it worked in the context of Love and Rockets. It was an adult magazine, but like Marvel Comics, it could be sexy without being lewd. Like Arkham has drawn a comic for me, and the first third of the husband and the wife are naked, but like, it's sexy. And I keep saying, be heavy with the blacks. They're walking through a cave and they're holding up a lantern, so you don't have to see everything, but a little hint every once in a while is kind of sexy. Matter of fact, I told him, could you go back and put some more shade on this? Whereas Renzo, man, he makes things more sexy. I'm like, Renzo, no, cover that up. He'll put a skirt on her. I was thinking of the skirt, but like, I kind of like the old dungarees because she's working in a mine. She's not going to be, and even though she's not doing the work, she's pretending, that she fits in with the miners. She's working in a gold mine. She looks like Hannah Dundee, but with blue pants to the white. Yeah, she's in the cowboy times. I prefer suggestions of a lewd, a little vitality, but not degenerate. Yes. Like, I do have an R-rated horror story in mind with nudity in it, but it's not for kids, and I think the nudity is part of the horror. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, I don't want to just put like Mary Sue naked running through the woods. You know what I mean? Like, it that's just crossing the line. And I do think a lot of these crowdfunded comics, since they don't, they're their own boss. I think a lot of them cross that line. Like what's his name? Why can't I think of the name? Cordrath by Andy Smith. There was just like a nude scene, and when he reprinted it, he took it out. So, like, if you could just take it out, it didn't add anything to the story. What was it there for? It was there because he's selling comics to horny middle-aged men. You know what I mean? RJ is right that Jim Lee Sue Storm was an Instagram shot before Instagram. always thought that John Byrne took all the magic out of Superman. It's funny. I've come to that conclusion now, but man, did I love John Byrne's Superman. But now I kind of love the Silver Age, Superman. Dirtiest comic I ever read was issues of Heavy Metal. Yeah, Heavy Metal had some real suggestive stuff, but it worked because it was heavy metal. It was for an adult audience. So she's a gold digger. Literally, she's literally a gold digger. But she uses her sexuality to get other men to do the work. Yeah, that's the witch. She's a witch. Oh, RJ has something to share.
How about Warlord for a good character that a lot of people don't know about?
Yes, Mike Grell's Warlord. Yeah, I think I'm up to issue 22 reading this because I skipped this when it came out. I was not interested in sword and sorcery comics at all. And through meeting you and talking to you, you got me interested in Conan and all this stuff. So I bought like the first 25 issues of Warlord, and I think I'm up to issue 22. But
it's funny you should say that. I am right now, like I'm getting back into listening to Robert E. Howard and Conan stories on YouTube again because I'm just getting bored of the politics and everything else I put in the background when I'm working. So it's like I want to go. What am I going to do? I was like, go back and listen to Conan stories because you go to YouTube, you can find people reading them all the time, and I can just do it as I work. It's great.
Yeah, I never liked audiobooks, but now I have a rule. I'll only get an audiobook of a book that I've already read. So I've been listening to the Silmarillion again at work. Sometimes in construction, you spend 3 days doing this repetitious job. You know what I mean? I'm putting in these racks overhead. So I go up a ladder, measure it. After the third one, it just becomes a routine. And you're literally doing it hundreds and hundreds of times. So I put on the Silmarillion, listening to, audiobook. Yeah, because I'm tired. YouTube, I've been unsubscribing to channels.
Me too.
I'm not interested in drama and fighting. And my wife will come home and start telling me about what's going on in the world. And I'm like, I had no idea that was happening because I'm turning into a shut-in. I don't want. It's all bad news anyway. And if this new war in the Middle East and they nuke New York City, at least I'm dying reading a comic book and I had no idea because you know what I mean. I didn't spend my last 6 hours of life worrying. I was just like, oh wow, I like this comic. But yeah, Mike Grell's Warlord, man, does he draw sexy women?
Oh yeah. This would be, if you don't know the world of Warlord, it's basically the DC version of the Savage Lands. Not quite, with the different animals and things like that, but its basic premise is kind of like that if you don't know Warlord, because he's a Air Force pilot, and he basically gets marooned in this undiscovered land.
Right. It's the Hollow Earth, right, or something like that. Skara, something like that. Like, isn't it? He goes down into a volcano in Antarctica, and that brings him into it like a pocket universe or Hollow Earth or whatever. Scartaris. That's it. Which was Journey to the Center of the Earth from H.G. Wells. And yeah, and he has a gun in a sword fighting. It was a good comic. And Mike Grell is a super conservative. If you read his book, Mike Sable, man, would people freak out if that came out right now? Mike Sable, he solves violence. He solves problems with shooting people in the face. He goes on African safaris and kills giraffes and lions and stuff like that. And then, he has hot chicks in bikinis. He writes articles about guns and everything like that. Oh, I thought you were. I thought I was going to get a lambasted over here. Ignoring world events is honestly a winning move most of the time. What can I do about it? Like, I'm at the point now where it's like voting doesn't even matter. They're not going to pass this new act to limit the people who should be voting. So, like, what's the point of paying attention to politics anymore? There's like either two things now: get super involved and start an uprising. That's a young man's game, or just nope out. I don't have any children. I'll do the boomer thing and spend all my money and die penniless. If I wasn't married, I'd probably be more detached. I like Warlord, but why do they have to draw the main hero looking so old? It always looked like a grandpa was hooking up with a shape-shifting panther granddaughter. Yeah, because Mike, there's a certain artist that always gets his chops busted because he draws the same face. And as much as I don't like that certain artist because he's a jerk and he's an idiot and he's stupid, I'm not going to bust on him for drawing the same face because George Perez, John Byrne, and Mike Grell and Howard Chaykin all drew the same face. But that was Mike. I don't know what Mike Grell looks like, so I wonder if Mike Grell looked like that because Howard Chaykin would draw himself into the comics all the time. That's what I need to do. Yeah, just get some peace of mind. Air Force Warrior breaking the immersion for the other branches. Oh, here we go. Here's some Jack Kirby.
Yep. Forever People is a forgotten book.
Yeah, they were they were chaos, whereas in D&D terms, like they were chaos and Darkseid was law. So I always like the fact that like Jack Kirby showed you that individuality is good, herd mentality is bad. That's Darkseid. Submit, collectivize. The Forever People, the hippies, they were the individuals.
I just love the fact that Kirby was able to get away with some of the things that he did with his art. It just amazes me every time when I look at one of his covers.
Yeah, he to me is like almost supernatural. Like they said that he didn't just like I don't know if Matt's still here. If you're listening, Matt in Arkham, tell me how you guys draw. Like they do layouts and pencils, but they said Jack Kirby would just start in the corner of the page and draw as if everything like he was just summoning it out of his imagination. I don't know. I wasn't there, but that's what people said. And I will never forgive Jack Kirby for OMAC. No, for Commandy. I forget what issue it was, but he introduced Flower, and he made me love Flower. I thought that was going to be Commandy's long-term girlfriend. Spoiler alert, she dies in the next issue. And Jack, you broke my heart, Jack. You really made me love this girl character. She was like the perfect woman, and then he kills her. Running around.
Funny thing is, I would say that in a weird sort of way, Jack Kirby's kind of the photo negative of Will Eisner. Will Eisner was known for making his illustrations in a way that it was believable in the fact, so much so that when he drew clothes on things, it looked like it was draping off of a person that was really existing and they really had clothes on. Jack Kirby is the exact opposite. It's like the clothes are wearing the people.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. Will Eisner, I like his old style, like during the Spirit, and he was inked by a whole litany of assistants and everything like that, like Jerry Garendetti, I think his name was, but when he did stuff like my favorite thing by him is a Life Force. Everybody talks about A Contract with God, which is good, but I like a Life Force a lot better. But he kind of got a little bit more cartoony, but all of his characters, like they had weight to them. Like when they were stepping, you could see the force of impact on their knees and stuff like that. Like they were walking in the real world. Their clothes were drooping. I do love all of that.
Here's a set of characters I know you like, John, from New Universe characters.
I don't know where you got that information from. I didn't particularly like the New Universe. I
thought you liked was it Nightmare? Not Nightmare. What's his name? The guy, the Black Knight. Yes.
I thought there was the problem with the New Universe is Jim Shooter just said, I want to do a whole new slate of comics. Everybody go and come up with something. And everybody was like, Kickers Incorporated. It's all right. Like, rather than just being like, who has a good concept? Like, I'm dying to do this. I want to do, okay, that, you know what I mean? So it was just like, go. You got 24 hours, come up with a whole new universe. And that, it's like DP7 was good. Star Brand turned good later. But most of the stuff like Kickers Incorporated, They're a bunch of football players. Who cares? You know,
But you got to remember, John, this is the time we had things like US1 for crying out loud.
US1. He was US1. He was a trucker, and he received CB radio signals in the fillings of his teeth. Let's go read that comic. I love New Universe. I know I'm going to get lambasted tonight. I just needed not to be connected to. Just needed not. Yeah, the New Universe was supposed to be its own thing, and for the most part, it was until Starbrand, I think, made its way into Marvel proper, right?
Yep.
But New Universe got better. It got better later on. Look at it. I look like a kook. I look like a crazy guy who invented plutonium. Yeah, Flash Gordon, mad Russian scientist partner. That's what I look like. I just, back to my normal schedule. So around 9 o'clock, I have to call it quits. So we can talk for another half hour if you want.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up some other.
Does anybody have any lesser known characters they want to talk about? I'm trying to think of characters that I championed. I loved White Tiger from, I knew him from the Spectacular Spider-Man, and then later on I found out that he was in the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. I loved all like the Daughters of the Dragon, the Sons of the Tiger, and then White Tiger. I love that little Kung Fu pocket of the DC Marvel universe, and I didn't think anybody else knew about them, so they were like my little characters. I loved them.
I told you about this character before. This is Marvel trying to put out another basically Conan book without it being Conan.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
It's actually a good book. You go back and read them. These fit in very well with the Conan stuff. And I told people before, this is there's also books written on this character. Not Marvel, when they took this character and put it into comics, it was already an established character, pulp character.
I'm trying to see that. It looks like it looks like Gil Kane and Barry Windsor Smith had a baby. That art style. Do you know who the artist is?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
And I know I have a bunch of creatures on the loose. That was another eBay lot.
Yeah, I got these books. They're like a story away from me, but I don't remember who did the art for it.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, there was Atlas Comics, the 70s Atlas Comics. They had a 4-issue series called Iron Jaw.
Oh, there's another one. It's not just Iron Jaw. I don't know if this will go through. There you go. It is the Claw.
Yeah,
that's the DC version.
Yeah, I got these. I think there's 8 issues, and then Chuck Dixon did a version of this like in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah, and Iron Jaw was out at the same time, done by who was it? The guy you visited, who lives in the old age home. Stanley's half brother.
Yeah, Larry Lieber. Yeah. I didn't visit him. I just cold called him, and we ended up talking like 4 nights in a row for hours. And I called him again, and he didn't pick up the last time we called. I know he's still around, but I should call him. I now that I'm back on a normal schedule, I kind of told myself that I was going to call him and be like, "You remember me? Can I take you out to dinner?" Because he doesn't want to come on the channel. He doesn't want to talk. I would love to, like, I can't, just take you out to dinner. He lives in Manhattan. I don't want to dox him, but everybody knows he lives in Manhattan, in one of those rent controlled apartments. Probably pays like $200 a month for some like Upper East Side apartment. Warlord was my favorite of the Conan knockoffs. Yeah, Warlord. You never read Arian, Son of Thunder, or Arak, Son of Thunder?
I have plenty of those issues. I never read it issue to issue. I would just pick up. That would be one of the comics, kind of like an Archie. You'd pick it up every once in a while and just read it because it would be laying around at my house, anyways.
That is a great comic. I got eBay. It was like $12. I got like a full run, like near mid. They are so good. It started out kind of weak, but once they embraced, it's an American Indian. His father is the American Indian god of thunder, and Vikings attack, kill everybody in his village, take him as a child slave. Then those Vikings get killed by other Vikings. So by the time he makes it to Norway, he's like adopted, and he grows up as a Viking. So he's an American Indian demigod growing up in a Viking culture. And then he just becomes like a mercenary and travels the world. He ends up in Byzantium and everything. It's so good. You know, it's I don't know, Roy Thomas, and I think Ernie Chan, I think, drew like every issue. It was really, really good. Oh, here's a comic. I love this. Dave Stevens Valkyrie. Matter of fact,
for Chuck Dixon. I put this up for Chuck Dixon here.
This was the image that I sent that artist for my witch. I was like, make her more like this. And then she drew what she drew. I just think she was a little uncomfortable, like making her blatantly sexy, but I kind of like what she did. Like, again, the story is very whimsical. It's from the eyes of a child. So I think toning down the sex part of the witch was the right move. But yeah, Valkyrie. This was a creepy comic now that I look back at it. You know, Valkyrie loved Airboy in the 40s. She gets captured by Misery, one of my favorite supervillains of all time. Talk about a lesser known character. The villain Misery. He's this demonic skull. He looks like a red skull, but he's like black with a hood. And he flies a bomber, like a B-17 bomber, and it's called the Air Tube. And it's like Doctor Who's ship. It's bigger on the inside. It's an infinite graveyard. So if he kills you, anybody who gets killed by Misery, they're buried in this graveyard of mist inside the airplane. And Valkyrie gets killed, and she's entombed in the air tube. And Airboy breaks into the air tube and rescues her, like physically drags her body out, and now she's alive again. So now she's alive, but in modern days, like, it's Airboy's son who rescues her. So now Airboy dies. He's an old man, dies of old age, and now she's hitting on her former lover's son, you know, but the illusion of change, you know, Valkyrie and Airboy.
I can't remember. Is it that character that becomes basically the final boss for Total Eclipse?
I don't remember. I know you like that Total Eclipse, but Total Eclipse was a Crisis on Infinite Earths for Eclipse comic, coincidentally written by Marv Wolfman, and I just hated it. It just was like, it was kind of like, oh, good, dude, write a Crisis on Infinite Earth, go. And the DC universe, at least they were all in the same universe. This had like a Airboy and why can't I think of the name of that comic now? Bean World, you know, all working together. Like, they were never supposed to be a cohesive universe.
That's funny because they did do the same thing for Valiant Comics, but it was basically issue zeros that you could only get through the mail by buying other issues and sending in coupons.
Yeah. That actually kept me from getting into Valiant because I missed that. And I'm like, well, if I can't get them all, then I'm not getting them. That's how stubborn I am. You know what I mean? Like what I have people on my channel, and one guy was just like, my issue number 1's out of print, and it's never going to be printed again. And I'm like, well, have you met a comic book collector? Like, nobody's just going to jump in at number 6 of your series. Like, they want to get, and he's, you know, I'm like, you could at least make a trade paperback. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, good luck with that. But comic book people want a full series. You know, we're anal retentives. Old Dirty Fatty says, if you remember your shooter history, he was guaranteed a bigger budget and a larger staff and more time to develop the universe, but the higher ups pulled the rug out. Oh, I did. Did he talk about that when he was on my channel? I was mostly like in awe, you know. So I need to rewatch that video to remember the conversation. Did I come across as an idiot? Because I was like, Jim Shooter's on my channel. Jim Shooter's on my channel. Jim Shooter. Yeah, Airboy, and to be an original Valkyrie, she was a villain. She was a Nazi at first, and people liked her, so Airboy seduced her to the light side of the Force. Did you know that Gardner Fox created a character in the 50s called Crom the Barbarian?
I did just because I was doing a interview with a guy who was collecting all things Crom, and he was republishing the ones that he could. That's the only reason I know about that. I liked Deathlock, although what they did with him in the late 80s and when they changed I like the original character of Deathlock from the 70s that you got in the future of 1984.
Right.
And then they redid the character and brought him into modern times, late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
I didn't like the character then. They did it in a prestige graphic novel format, which it had good art, but the story just didn't hold up.
Yeah, the original one was Luther Manning, and he got killed in some future war, and they put like cybernetic implants in his brain and made him like a zombie. So he was a technological zombie, and the electronics awakened his brain and it summoned his memories back, and he rebelled against the programming. It was a great concept. It was Rich Buckler created it and drew him, but it was in an alternate future, and then they decided they wanted him in regular Marvel, so they made Michael Carter, and that's the one that exists in the regular universe.
I honestly think, I'm not sure, I'd have to check the timeline for it, but this is what I'm talking about with limitations making comics better, because I do believe that Deathlock was created because they wanted a zombie character, but the Comic Code Authority would not allow zombie characters at that time. So that's why they created Tigra, for crying out loud, because they weren't allowed werewolves. So they and
not only that, the Comics Code Authority gave us Morbius, so we got Morbin time because of the Comics Code Authority. The movie. Yeah, I always hated Morbius. It was just like, he's a living vampire. Well, then he's not a vampire. You know what I mean? Like the fast zombies in the remakes of the zombie movies, that breaks the loop. Zombies are slow, lumbering dead. Fast zombies breaks the rules. It's like vampires in Twilight that could be out in the daytime and twinkle. Then you're not a vampire.
Okay, here is one of the unfortunately forgotten characters that I think should really, really, I don't know, it just never made sense to me why they couldn't revamp this character, because it was so big in the 60s and 70s.
Okay, before you bring that up, Massive Panda says, yeah, I find it really strange that indie creators are recreating the same problems that the mainstream created. Just make your comics available so we don't have to jump through hoops to read them. Yes, I agree. Make it as easy as possible to get your comic. Right now, whenever I go to Indiegogo, I have to click something and it sends me a code to my email, and it just kills the impulse buy. So Indiegogo, get rid of this. It's stupid. Make it so that I go to Indiegogo, buy that freaking comic book before I get a chance to think about it again. It happened twice this week, and twice this week I didn't back comics because I'm like, I gotta type in a code, and it just ruined my enthusiasm. Second, there's a person who's been emailing. He says he's been watching us. I'm sorry, I forget his name, and he was asking advice about his own comic, and he wanted to know, like, his comic is complete. He's doing it all on his own. And he said, should he do a crowdfund? And I said, absolutely do a crowdfund. I said, in this day and age, it'll only help you if you tell people the comic's done. The comic's done. Like, I know we have this like, oh, crowdfunding is supposed to be so that we could raise the money to make if you're doing it yourself, you don't need to crowdfund. Crowdfund is like for full-time artists to find out if there's interest in the comic. But if you were to, so long story before I annoy RJ with this ramble, to the person who sent me the email, crowdfund the comic, because if it's already done, there's going to be people who never heard of you, never saw you on the other side of the planet, that don't know you exist, and they're going to see a comic and they're going to buy it. They never would have bought that comic because it's hard to get it in the comic book store. If I remember correctly, you said you were in Hawaii, so you're not going to go to New York to a Comic-Con. So crowdfunding, yeah, get your comic book out to as many people as possible. Crowdfund on Fund My Comic, Indiegogo, Fund My Comic, Kickstarter. Don't do it against each other, because then they're going to compete with each other. But do 2 months on this, 2 months on that, 2 months on this. But anyway, I just wanted to. This question made me think of it.
I love the Spectre. It's Mike Mignola, but I love the Spectre. If this is one of the things I find for inspiration for stories. It's like if I need any kind of inspiration for my supernatural book, which is Fade to Blue, all I got to do is go back and look at old Spectre or Phantom Stranger covers and just make up my own story based on that cover. It's just absolutely beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I do love this. I love how it looks like he's underwater. You know, it almost looks like Spectre's just floating, you know, but he's a ghost, so I guess he would be floating. Yeah, I do like the Spectre. The problem with the Spectre is he's so inconsistent. For its clobbering time last week, we did characters that are inconsistently portrayed, and I can't believe nobody brought up the Spectre. This is a character that is always different. You know, they don't know what to do with this character. I kind of like him just to have like basic ghost powers, you know, just like a ghost superhero, not this omnipotent being of the wrath of God, you know. I always saw Misery as an aviator version of Davy Jones, the air tomb of an airbound version. Yep, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I didn't like the Wonder Woman live action show having a relationship with the son of Trevor. Did that happen in the Linda Carter series? It's been so long, I don't remember. Zombies should be slow because of rigor mortis, which locks up the muscle joints. Hence, they should be slow. That's what I agree. Like I could see, yeah, I agree. I was going to say I'll make an exception for the. Nope, zombies are slow. Zombies are slow. It's like werewolves that don't turn into werewolves. They're werewolves, but like they just get angry people. Then they're angry people. They're not werewolves. Werewolves turn into wolves.
Anybody into Johnny Quest? That's what I'm going to ask because I never really got into Johnny Quest.
Yes, I love Johnny Quest and I love these comics. This was Comico or Kamiko. I learned how it's pronounced. These were absolutely worth it. Get these. I think Dave Stevens did that cover, but I think the interiors was Alex Toth, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
These are absolutely worth it. If you could find them, get them, and you can read them out of order because they're just like the cartoon. Every issue is standalone.
I can remember the Johnny Quest theme song from the television show. It's basically instrumental, but you know, I never got into the comics.
And if you like the Venture Brothers is based on Johnny Quest. I have that issue. RJ, did you ever watch the Venture Brothers?
No.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so funny. I wonder if you would like it. It starts out slow, but it just builds and builds and builds, and it's basically goofing on Johnny Quest. Like it's instead of Johnny Quest, it's what's his name, Dr. Venture. Yeah, you know, and then they meet Johnny Quest, and they got sued and had to change his name to Action Johnny instead of Johnny Quest. Yeah, yeah. If you do check it out, let me know. I'm curious if you like it. Oh, the comment stopped. So now we can finally talk about whatever you wanted to talk about.
Okay, I'll share you one more, at least one more. I'm getting to the end of my folder here. But again, character that I love and that has some good comics. He is, of course, the Shadow.
Oh, yeah. My father loved the Shadow. I don't know why, but it turned into like a family joke is whenever we went to funerals. I don't know if anybody else does this, but there's always a book and you sign your name in the book and then they send you a funeral card in the mail or something in the mail. My father, just one day, he just wrote Lamont Cranston in the book. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. And he just looked at me and goes, John, the Shadow knows. So ever since, every time I go to a funeral, I write Lamont Cranston, and then underneath I sign my name. You know?
That is funny.
Yeah, Lamont Cranston is one of the Shadow's secret identities. That Johnny Quest comic is $100. Really? Yeah, I pronounce a lot of names wrong. John, you pronounce Toth's name like both, not so it's Alec Toth. Is that how you pronounce it? I've been saying it wrong for decades. Then, Alex Toth. Gold Key, Eclipse both had good story and art. Wonder why they never took off, or is it people were brainwashed? It's Gold Key took off. Gold Key and Dell were the biggest, by far the biggest comic book companies, and then they just collapsed. I have a book here about Dell Comics. I gotta read it. I got this hardcover book about Dell Comics. I need to read it because they sold like millions of, like, during the whole, Seduction of the Innocent and the 10-cent plague and the Wortham and all. Gold Key and Dell Comics escaped all that because they were always wholesome, and they never had the Comics Code Authority on them because they had a stricter policy, and they were like notable exceptions. So why did they implode? I'll never know.
Quick question on this. This is Barry Windsor Smith's Storyteller from, what is it, 2001? Do you have this book? I've just recently come across it. I've never read it.
What's the name? The name of the book is
Storyteller. But yeah, I think so.
No, I don't have this. Look at the use of the backgrounds. Just he's fighting at night, so just color the sky blue.
Yep.
And then that one panel on the bottom left is just black because he can't just have the whole page of the same. Yeah, that first opening panel has that really good details in the background. The second panel, and then the rest of it, we don't need the background detail so much because it's established where they are, and he could save time. It's the way comic book pros used to cheat and get away with it. I think that's another thing in crowdfunding is they spend so long drawing every detail in the background when you don't really need to do it. You have a guy punching a guy in the face, just have a red background with some explosion lines. There you go. Move on to the next panel. And that is really good. No,
there are some good Conan, we'll call them knockoffs, but especially Barry Windsor Smith revisiting his whenever he revisits, even on the covers for New Mutants and X-Men, he revisited his basically Conan lore kind of thing. It was always beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm collecting Conan, and once a month when I put in an order for back issues, I put in another Conan because they're expensive and I don't want to buy 10 at a time. So I'm reading it a little like monthly, and I wasn't too impressed the first couple of issues. I'm like, he's drawing like Kirby and not as good, but I think I'm up to like 16 or so. He's good. It's really good, and I like it better when they're not crib noting Conan, what's his name? Howard stories. I like it better when it's their own stuff because they're taking a whole big pulp novel and putting it into a comic book. You just know that they're getting rid of some of the details. I picked up the first 3, got $5 each. Oh, for the Johnny Quest comics. Adventure Brothers is Johnny Quest meets Spaceballs. I wouldn't say Spaceballs, but it's Johnny Quest grows up, and he's just not as good as his father. That's Rusty Venture. He grows up and he's not as good as Doc Venture, his father. It's really good. It's one long, like, you have to watch it in order. Or I think if you watch the Venture Brothers out of order, you're not going to appreciate it as much because it just drops clues and then it rewards long-term viewing. No Barry Windsor Smith. Oh, that's expensive. I got to look it up now. Now I'm curious. I'm looking it up. Scrolling down. So anybody in the chat, do you guys have any like lesser known characters that you really like? That aren't, obviously popular. Lesser known characters mean that. As far as superheroes, I know for villains, I've always liked the Absorbing Man. That's my guys. I cringe when I see other people using the Absorbing Man. I'm like, that's mine. I know one of my friends is really into Demolition Man. Okay, the Storytellers on my comic shop is not the one. So what is it a graphic novel or is it a series?
I'll have to look it up again because I was just going through, I think, someone's Twitter timeline when I ran across the art and I started to look for it.
Yeah, I
So-
don't know what it is.
All right. Well, I think I got to the end of my list of obscure characters that I wanted to talk about tonight. So if any, like John said, anybody else has any to throw in before we hit 9 o'clock, now's your chance.
Yeah, now's a chance. Trying to think of lesser known. I this is cheesy, but do you remember the Texas Twister from Fantastic Four?
Did he have like the green costume with the
Oh, blue.
who am I thinking of? Whirlwind?
Yeah, you're thinking
I'm
of
thinking of Whirlwind. He had like the helmet that kind of looked like
it had the
Galactus. That was Whirlwind.
Galactus. Yeah. The Texas Twister, he showed up in a few Marvel comics, and he's real hokey, and the fact that he didn't show up a lot gave him what I call the Boba Fett treatment. So we filled in the details. I wish that was bigger.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You remember that character?
Yep.
Yeah, because he showed up in the, like, when I first started collecting Fantastic Four during the George Perez years. I'll see if there's any better images of him. Okay, this one looks bigger. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll take this down and I'll share. I hope when I share these screens, people don't see my ads for adult diapers. There we go. Texas Twister. There you go. Look how cheesy he is. I reckon. And he would shoot tornadoes out of his hand. Well, Hollister, the new Marvel character that I always enjoyed back in the and Barry Windsor Smith's Ruin. Yeah, Barry Windsor
Incorporated. I forgot about Terra Incorporated.
I don't know Hollister. Yeah, Terra Incorporated. Man, that one totally slipped under the radar for me.
The Weird. How about the Weird? Anybody remember the Weird? That was a DC character.
Yeah, it was DC's Bertie Wrights, and I think Jim Starlin wrote it. He was this cosmic powered being. How about Tarantula from Spider-Man? He had a cool looking costume. Yeah, I think he's in the new Spider-Man movie. I think he's one of the villains in the new Spider-Man movie. I think they're taking some of the lesser powered Spider-Man villains. Bionicle. I remember Bionicle, but I never read it. Powers, abilities, suck, but still cool name. Oh, you talk about the Tarantula? Yeah, the Tarantula was, I think he was like Mexican, and he had like steel pointy shoes, and he would kick you, stab you with his feet, because it's based on the dance of the Tarantella, where it's supposed to be like a dance where the movements reminded people of a spider. I sent you pictures. Oh yeah, you sent it to me on Messenger, so I can't bring it up on the screen. If you sent it to me on Twitter, I'd be able to bring it up. Yeah. Barry Windsor Smith storyteller. Okay, so the name of the comic is Barry Windsor Smith. Subscript storyteller. Yeah, I got to check that up. Looks beautiful. See if I can find it on my comic shop. What did I just do? I don't know what I did. Oh well. Boomer's got a boom.
Speaking of which, John has to get to bed, so we're going to wrap things up.
Yeah, we ran our course.
We, like I said at the first of the stream, just in case anybody wants to know, Crumb the Destroyer will be going up on Fund My Comic instead of Indiegogo for the last stretch. It will be up there on next Wednesday when we do our live stream. So that's when it will be. That's the day it will be open. And if anybody still wants to buy a copy of it, we're doing the last couple of pages of art right now, line art, and I'm getting a bunch of other people to work simultaneously to get that book out. We're hoping at the very latest by the end of September. If things go better, we'll do it in the summer whenever we're going to get that book out. So just let everybody know that's the plan there. And once we get Crown the Destroyer out, then I'm going to be shotgunning the other ones out one after another, because I have like 3 books that are almost complete. One of them being Fade to Blue, another one being Artemis, and Renzo is also working. He hasn't done too many pages lately, but he also is working on Thomas Valiant #2.
Okay, so next Wednesday is April 1st. This will be a launch party then?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Just for anybody who wants to get Crom still. But it's basically only the book. I might put up a couple of other things there that were from the original campaign, but it's just for the book for now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, I'll promote it. Yeah, I'll tweet every day. That's great. Looks good. Can't wait. All right. Yeah, I got nothing else to say other than Heroic Tales 2 is still available on Fund My Comic. I got some copies left. I commissioned second printing covers, so we'll see how that. And I have some cool ideas for second printing covers of all my comics. They're gonna have a theme, so that'll be fun. I want to launch King Fu as soon as possible. As you know, there's a 6-page story, so as soon as I get 1 or 2 pages, and the King Fu is 16 pages. As soon as I get like 3 or 4 pages of each thing, we're gonna make a trailer, launch the book, and it's gonna be streamlined, and it's gonna be as fast as possible, because my goal is to get the comic in your hands by this Christmas. And then once RJ's done with those 16 pages, he'll finish Patriarch #1, and then he'll work on Thomas Valiant.
Renzo,
what did I say? RJ?
You said me. You said RJ.
Oh, yeah, get to work. Learn how to draw.
So it's going to be a King Fu Christmas. Just let everybody know it's going to be a King Fu Christmas.
It's going to be a flip book, so it's going to have King Fu Blue Christmas, and then on the back it's the Patriarch celebrating Christmas called Christmas Magic. So, and it's going to be this artist. She's kind of like manga inspired. Like, I kind of like it, and if it works out with her, she's going to do another Super Team comic for me. So this is kind of like a tryout. But we'll see you. See everybody.
All right, I'll see everybody later. We'll be back next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday for the second, what is it called?
Relaunch.
The relaunch of Crom the Destroyer. Cool. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.